Episode 65. Let's do this. Welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Barnes, providing right now solutions to some of your biggest teaching and learning problems. Now, let's hack learning. Today we are hacking your personal viewpoints and how you handle those in the classroom. What we want to talk about is how you deal with opinion and how you represent your beliefs with students, and they're watching and they're listening, and this is a really important thing. And this comes up because in a presidential debate recently, an audience member asked a question to the candidates, and that question was about how they represent themselves on TV. And especially in a debate, the person said that many teachers ask their students to watch debates, I've done this, and to then, come back and discuss it the next day and to write about it. And the person said, do you think that, your behavior is appropriate for kids who may be watching? And boy, I thought that was a fabulous question, and I'm not sure that the candidates really answered the question, but it brought up an interesting point that I've talked to some people about, and I thought, wow, this is something we need to hack. Because I remember when I was in the classroom, I certainly shared a lot of my opinions, and, I taught for many years and many presidential elections, and, kids ask. And that's one thing, I've had this discussion a lot with people where they say, well, my students will ask me about, who am I going to vote for? And I say, well, that's my personal business, just like it's your business. Well, that may be true, but I don't know that it's the best way to connect with kids. After many years of playing it close to the vest like that, I learned to tell my kids that I would answer pretty much anything. In fact, that was a great icebreaker at the beginning of the year. The first week, we used to end class with 3 to 5 minutes of Ask Me Anything. I told the kids, as long as it's not too personal or inappropriate, I'll answer it. Well, invariably, they ask political questions. You're Republican, you're Democrat. If it's a presidential election, who are you going to vote for? I got to the point where I just answered. I would say what my preference was in terms of politics, if I had one, because quite frankly, I've wavered over my lifetime. I've been a Republican, I've been a Democrat. There's been times I felt that I was somewhere in the middle. And I often found that it really depended upon the candidate himself or herself, as the case may be. But I would tell kids I'm going to vote for this person because of whatever the reason is, and not get too much into issues. I think that can be a problem. But kids really respond to that. It's that, as my good friend Jim Sturdivant, author of Hacking Engagement, 50 Tips and Tools to Engage Teachers and Learners Daily, he talks about being a real person. He says, when you bond with kids, when they see you as a real person, you connect with them, and then that really makes things better. So we want to talk a little more about this. I want to talk about things you can do, what the problem is, what the hack is, and things you can do tomorrow to solve the problem, if you see this as a problem. So I think it is a problem when teachers play things too close to the vest, when they don't want to open up. It's really a problem because kids don't see them as a real person. And I think it's really important for kids to see you as a real person and to be able to connect with you, to not look at a teacher as someone who's just a dispenser of information. So for me, the hack, and I could certainly borrow from James Sturdivant and Hacking Engagement and many other hack learning authors, for me, the hack is to connect with kids, to bond with them, and to be open. So I want to talk about how to do this, some of the pitfalls that you're going to face, how to overcome them, and give you some what you can do tomorrow, things to connect with your kids, to bond with them, to show them that you're a real person, and to navigate those issues. Before we do, though, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this week's sponsor, Kiddom. Hey, education hacker, Kiddom helps teachers turn personalized learning from a buzz phrase to reality. With Kiddom, teachers gain access to an unlimited library of standards-aligned content with beautiful, actionable reports. The best part is, Kiddom is 100% free. Check it out today. Go to kiddom.co/hacklearning to start engaging your students one-on-one. That's kiddom.co/hacklearning. So Kiddom is awesome for engaging, and that's what we're talking about today, is how to engage on a level that makes you seem real to your students, how to not play it too close to the vest, how to be open to share your opinions, and which will spark some very good discussion in the classroom and will get kids to connect with you and to certainly to be more willing to do other academic things because of that connection, which is really, really critical. So how do we do this? How do I tell kids my opinion on sensitive issues and keep it appropriate for class, and also do it in a way that helps them bond with me rather than create this sort of divisive environment, which is possible, especially in the world of politics. Here's what I would do. Let's say you want to go into class tomorrow, and we're in an election time right now at the time of broadcast here. But, this certainly applies to any time. There doesn't have to be a presidential election. There's always elections going on. So you can use that as a topic, but then, maybe you're doing something on persuasion. You're writing a persuasive essay. Maybe you're in science class and a topic comes up like, evolution along with intelligent design. How do we navigate that? What do we do, and how do we face those issues and do it in a way that connects with kids and still maintains what's appropriate? Started off the show by talking about that presidential debate when it was a town hall environment and someone said to the candidates, are you appropriate for kids to watch? So we want to be open, but we want to be appropriate. So the first thing I would do is consider what you're going to talk about tomorrow. So if you're going to cover an issue that has some sensitivity, if it's politics, maybe if it's a debate, let's stick with that example, and you're going into class and you're going to talk about that, boy, there's going to be a lot of heated discussion around that because there's a lot of heated debate. How are we going to deal with that? And what I want you to do is to anticipate. And teachers can be really good at this when they think about it. Sometimes we're overwhelmed with all of the other parts of lesson planning and assignment creation and all of that we don't anticipate the problems that come up. And this is such a big part of hack learning. What we want to do is think about the issues. What topic is it that you're going to discuss? What is the sensitivity? What is your stand? How will you present your opinion? If you want to come right out and say, well, I think this person won the debate, or I think that person won the debate, you have to be prepared to answer the why. What am I going to say to that? How will I say it? And what are some possible things that could come up that can make the discussion difficult? Anticipate the questions, anticipate pushback, and we respond. And we say, this is what we're going to do. It's that backward model. It makes us successful. Next, I would say you want to state your position as objectively as possible. You don't ever want to be in a situation with kids where you're making them think that you're right and they're wrong. Or just where you're saying to them, this is the way, where you're giving absolutes. We don't want to be too absolute because then if kids disagree, that can make them uncomfortable. This has happened with my own children at school. There's been a lot of times that issues have come up that are sensitive. They're in a situation where an educator says something that they perceive to be very absolute. And they come home and say, my teacher said this or my teacher said that. And I can tell they're troubled by it. They don't want to say I disagree, because they want to be respectful. But I can tell that they do. So we have to then have those discussions. So you're anticipating what's going to happen in the classroom, and you're also thinking ahead to what your position is, and you want to state it in ways that are not absolute. So I could say to kids, if they said, Mr. Barnes, who are you going to vote for in the election? And maybe I said if it were like now, it's Donald Trump running against Hillary Clinton. And maybe I say, well, I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Well, a lot of kids are going to say, whoa, my parents say this and my parents say that about Hillary and they say this about Donald Trump and whatever. I just don't want to make absolutes. I want to avoid saying Donald Trump is this or Donald Trump is that. I want to avoid saying, well, Hillary is so much better because of this. What I want to do instead is just say, I believe in this and I think that this candidate represents that belief. So that's how I'm voting. You can believe any way you want, and you're entitled to your vote any way you want because this is America, and that's what makes America great. And I think if you do that, you seem real to the kids. Going back to that hacking engagement point that Jim Sturdivant makes, you got to be real to kids. You seem real to them, which is phenomenal, and they're going to appreciate it. That's just what you can do tomorrow, and I think you can have the discussion about sensitive issues if you handle it the right way. Be prepared, anticipate what problems might come up, what are the arguments, and how are you going to approach those. And when you're asked for your opinion, give it, because kids want to hear it, but stay away from absolutes. You have an opinion because you feel something is right based on your personal beliefs, and that's the way you're going to go. If you do that, you really can't go wrong. So take on that sensitive issue tomorrow, because your kids will think you're real, they'll love it, and things will go so much better after. Hey, some of our strategies today come from Hacking Engagement, 50 Tips and Tools to Engage Teachers and Learners Daily by Jim Sturdivant. Check it out today at hackingengagement.com, and check out other Hack Learning books at hacklearningbooks.com. As always, we continue the conversation at #HackLearning on Twitter and on the show notes page at hacklearningpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.